and him doing Jokic things and get the win.
This would be the Rob Williams game if it wasn't the Derrick White game, but we're going to give the
Mhm.
guy his due. We're going to also welcome in Bobby and Joe Sway from the Garden in a little bit.
Nice.
But look, man, crap. You didn't know this guy was playing until minutes prior. He comes out, impact right away. Hits a
Yeah.
three, makes a steal,
Zipping around.
makes a couple assists, zipping around. Impossible not to like it,
He had a couple of should have been assists. So shout out Grant
Yeah,
Williams.
Grant killed him.
Yes, that one at the basket. My
Money's in.
gosh, that
There's
was
two.
yeah.
But
the
hey,
first one, but he was good. He was really, really good. And I had a chance to talk to assistant coach Will Hardy before the game, who was in San Antonio with Derrick. And actually, I wrote about that for fullcourtpress.bulletin.com, where he's talking about Derrick. And the one thing he said before the game that I just kind of tucked that away, and I was really looking for that, is he talked about Derrick's toughness and how fans are going to love this guy because he's a hard-nosed, diving for the loose balls type of guy. And you start going through his numbers, this will be the third year in a row where he's ranked in the top 7 in charges drawn, which everyone loves that. He had a game in a bubble where he drew not one, not two, but 5 charges in one game, which there are teams that don't even draw that many, and he did it in one game. So the one thing, again, he's a good player who has, I think, a very specific niche about him. He can do a little bit of a lot of different things, nothing great. But when you look at his story,
Come
I mean, he's giving you what you need. He's giving this team exactly what they need at this point.
So I thought Derrick White came as advertised based on the research that I did over the last 24 hours, talking to a couple people, watching all my favorite YouTube highlights. Came as advertised, came out there, provided a little spark, some energy all over the place. John already touched on little things that he did, but the best thing I think what White can do is just anyone who's ever been on a team or even in the workplace, you get the new guy in the office, or you get the new guy in the team. That gives you a little life, gives you a little spark, kind of gives you, mixes things up, and it might fire some guys up. I thought Marcus Smart tonight played with a purpose from start to finish. I don't know if that's a coincidence or what. I'm sure you guys saw that too. I mean, from the very first play of the game, I mean, he was diving on the. Not saying he doesn't usually do stuff like that, but it just felt like he came to play tonight, and great. I mean, if that's what it's going to be, if it's to Marcus Smart, a competition type thing, because I'm sure he knows that Derrick White has some similarities to his game, and I mean it's pretty obvious what's going on here. I think so. If that's going to bring out the best in everybody, great, because tonight they needed that type of performance, because anytime you're going against a team that has an MVP player on that team, you need to bring it, and I thought they did, and there were points where they went down 10, and I was like, damn, it doesn't feel like they should be down 10 right now. And then sure enough, they would claw right back in. So I thought they showed some fight tonight. And listen, I'm not going to say they won because Derrick White joined the team, but I do think that had a big effect. And you can certainly see his value. He's a big guard. And he made some nice passes tonight. Those those passes that might otherwise be forced shots, he seems to see the floor well. And on the other hand, even though he didn't hit all his shots, he wasn't hesitating to shoot them. He got the ball at the 3-point line. He put it up, whether they fell or not. So it's good to see that he's a confident player, even though this is his first game, and he probably didn't even know if he was going to play until we knew, roughly right, 30, 45 minutes before the game. So all things considered, I thought it was pretty solid.
Not only did he play, Jimmy, he played like the amount of minutes you would expect him to play in a regular game.
Oh yeah. Well, they weren't drawing plays up for him, but it just goes to show that his familiar, and we haven't even talked about this, but let's be honest, Ime had to have a pretty big hand in this trade going down because of the history that he has with White, not only in San Antonio but with Team USA. So they didn't need to have this sit down meeting and here's what I think you can do for us type thing. Like, they already know there's got to be some unspoken connection there. So yeah, I think he's easy to sort of slide right in and just play his game. Ime already knows what he's getting with him. Joe Sway in the building.
He also benefits from.
What's up, fellas?
What's going on, Josue?
It's a party in here, man. Everyone's celebrating.
Hang the banner.
Not quite, but the vibes are there. You know, everyone's happy with what they saw. It's a hard-fought, gritty win, if you ask me, on the defensive end. I mean, they just never let up in that fourth quarter. I don't know, man. This is the idea. This is the identity of this team, right?
Is it?
It's the identity of them this week.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the,
I mean,
I think
wouldn't say
it's the identity that they want to have, but the body of work. I mean, right now they're trending towards that's their identity. But as we all know, it hasn't been like that all season. But the addition of Derrick White kind of adds to the direction that they want to go in. They want to be a tough, gritty, defensive-minded team that can get after it, and he certainly fits in well with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think his playmaking
Josue,
abilities. No, I was going to say, I think his playmaking abilities obviously is a big part of this. And his threat from behind the arc. I know the percentage isn't great, but I think he's going to get a lot of open looks because of obviously guys like Tatum and Brown. And I love the one play in particular where Tatum tossed it from one corner to the other, and he, without even thinking, went right into a three-pointer. I think that's the kind of guy you want to. That's the kind of confidence you want to see in someone like that, especially in his debut. But not to mention the fact that it was easy for everyone to point out, and myself included, how low he's been shooting, from three this season. But for this team, the way this defense triggers the offense type of approach, he's a perfect fit. I mean, just like to quote Brad Stevens when he talked about helping his best players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Josue, did it feel? And I asked Sherrod this too. Did it feel like a different sort of vibe? I mean, was there I think Sherrod, maybe, I forget if we were on camera or if this was before we went live, but was there like a buzz in there tonight? Were people kind of fired up for a new look here?
I feel like there was. I mean, everyone saw the pictures of Daniel Theis being back in the mix. Obviously, his relationship with Rob, and people really enjoy that type of stuff. But he was he was on the bench. He wasn't here the whole game, but he was in the first half. And I think all of that was relevant. Everyone's obviously enjoying. It's somewhat nice out, for January or for February rather. And I feel like that was a little bit to do with it as well. I feel like a little more people, a larger crowd this time around, so that helped too. But yeah, you felt those vibes right away because of the trade. Everyone wants to see what this team looks like, and of course, I don't think most people didn't expect to see White tonight, but that's exactly what we saw. And those 8 points and 8 straight points was a heck of a start, heck of a debut, and I felt like that lingered throughout the course of the first half, a little bit into the second half, until the Celtics eventually shut the door. But man, Rob Williams, I mean, that's a guy who really got this crowd on their feet, man. That play, obviously, there's the big one down the stretch, but just time and time again, just beating the defender to the spot, and not only doing that, but triggering the fast break and then ending it on the same play. I mean, that kind of stuff, man. We have to start giving him more props for things like that, because you just don't see that across the league for big men across the league. And I know we had a conversation last time, or the last time I was on, about Rob potentially being that third star for this Celtics team, and he's continuing to show that. He's continuing to show more confidence and show more dominance, especially on the defensive end.
This is what a third superstar looks like. You going against the league MVP, he's going to get his numbers, but damn it, you better contest, you better fight, you better scrap to hold your own against him. I mean, Rob did that the entire game. I thought down the stretch he made some amazing defensive plays, some really, multi-effort, help side defensive plays that they're just a very select number of players in the league who can contest some of those plays, let alone actually complete them with blocks and things like that. So big game for Rob, big game for him.
Yeah, they were looking for him tonight. It feels like some games they do, some games they don't. Or maybe Rob was just being a little bit more decisive in calling for it, because it seemed like there was a little bit of a connection between like just throwing it up to him. You know what I mean? It's simple as that sometimes. Rob found himself under the rim, and the easy play sometimes is, instead of to force a layup, if you have a guy you can just toss it up to and have him throw it down. I mean, he was throwing it down off of deflections. I mean, Jokic tonight even got a hand on one, and he still grabbed it and put it down. So he was definitely locked in tonight. So I just think it was one of those games where, for whatever reason, they came to play. And the Nuggets, I thought, they played fairly well too. I mean, they were hitting some big threes, and Aaron Gordon seems to really be a force when he wants to be. That was a good pickup, and I think going back, I would have loved to have ended up with Aaron Gordon somehow last year, but that's a story for another day. But hey,
for another trade deadline.
Yeah, it's a story for another trade deadline. Hey, this trade deadline, depending on who you ask, this trade deadline was either much better or much worse than last year's trade deadline.
Much better. Come on. No?
Much better. I mean, I don't know how soon you guys want to get into it.
After what we know now, with Fournier and all that.
Yeah,
guys, like I said, you're not going to know how good this trade deadline was until 2028. But honestly, like realistically, you're not going to know. You're not. I'm half joking, but you're not.
No, you're thinking about that pick, well, obviously. But
I am like crazy. I think that's lunacy, but that's not going to make the deal. If Derrick White is a really solid ball player, you're happy that you made the deal, but you don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what the pick's going to be. I think most people have given up on Romeo entirely. That's fine. But ultimately, it's as much about that as it is what's the next move. Like I can't believe that this is the final move, and everyone's talking about. And again, you guys talked about Marcus Smart here. You guys talked about, Smart came out cooking tonight, and Smart was playing with purpose. He freaking very well, should have, right? Because Derrick White, in many people's estimation, is a potential Marcus Smart replacement. When you're talking about what's one of the motivations of making the move that the Celtics did, stacking salaries so you can make a big move next year. And the thought that you're going to keep both of these guys around for the long term doesn't seem likely. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it just feels like someone's got to go eventually. And, I don't know how Marcus feels about this, but he played his ass off tonight. So, I mean,
totally.
It lit a fire, but yeah, I'm not ruling anything a win and not a win after a single night, because again, you got to see what other dominoes fall along the way. But if this is the player you got, you're satisfied with the player you got.
Right.
How much it helps them down? How much it helps them down the road? I don't know. You look at another poor shooting night like this, and you look around and you're like, man, really could have used when Tatum and Brown don't shoot. And you're looking around like, who's going to knock down the shots? They got what they needed tonight. They might have to just win a lot of rock fights,
But you know what? I think they're gonna in those situations, John. I'm wondering if now they're able to withstand poor shooting nights if a guy like White can facilitate a little bit more and get Rob involved more.
Or they play crazy defense, and you're holding good teams under 100, right?
Sure.
It's the defense that's going to really just bail their asses out on a lot of nights now. And they got another guy. It's easy to find. I think they realize that they have a much better shot of finding like Derrick White bolster that defense than they are finding a sharpshooter, because you got a guy who can knock. It means he's not as good, or he's hard defensively.
Sherrod, you sound a little bit underwater there. Just letting you know from the audio. I don't know if something got funky there, but yeah, we heard you. Sorry. No, I know you got the mask too. I'm not telling you to take it.
No, I think it's because we both came in at the same time.
You guys messed with him?
Blame. Yeah, it's Josue.
Bobby, what's going on, man? First bite at the apple for you. We talked about Derrick White. What were your impressions?
Oh, I was thrilled.
Loved him. Phenomenal.
Shocking.
Phenomenal.
The energy, the organization, the floor placement.
Come on, Bob, you gotta say it.
And
say it.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal.
And so did Smart.
Phenomenal.
What a backcourt pairing. What a closing run. 21-16. Second half, stifling defense.
Yeah.
That's your win of the year right there. And this guy just watches a little bit of film. Here's he's gonna play about 45 minutes before the game. Gets out there, takes a few shots, and it looks like he's been playing here all year. Cut with the and one. He missed a free throw on it, but that was big. Hit some threes here. You saw that when he gets open off the Jays and does some second-level driving action and gets those catch-and-shoot opportunities above the break, he'll hit them. And he hits them in the corner in this game. He had a big turnover in the second half. That was a tough one, but someone got him back on the defensive end there. And his defense was solid. He was right in the mix. And like Ime said before the game and after the game, this is a guy who ran all the same stuff in San Antonio, essentially, that they're running here. So he's fit to jump right in. Wasn't exactly the ball dominant point guard. He wasn't doing everything on the ball.
No, and in fact, when he entered the game, like they didn't have the ball in his hands a lot at all.
Yeah, but he's
not
so
in
good off
not in
the
the
ball.
half court at all.
Yeah, but he's so good off the ball. He was able to work with it. That made that closing run work. This was great. This guy, Celtics fans are going to love him quick, and it got loud in here when he entered the game. This was the loudest game by far all year.
Just wait till Theis gets in a game. Sherrod's not going to be able to. Sherrod's not going to be able to contain himself.
Oh, you like the Sherrod return? I mean, Theis return, Sherrod, huh?
Between you, Bobby, and Sherrod, we're going to be hanging Theis jerseys over those Horford jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
Might be time.
Horford's coming down very soon, I think. The jersey, I mean.
So were you impressed, Jimmy? We didn't really get your take on the trade.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to rewind, I was definitely skeptical at first on the trade. I'll be honest. I mean, similar to John's point of view, I think I texted you guys immediately my reaction because I couldn't join the show, unfortunately. But I'm still a little hesitant on the first round picks, giving them up just because you're so thin. Like after like 6 or 7 guys, just to have like capable NBA players to sort of round out your team, never mind your rotation. So that to me, it's like you really want to hit on a draft pick. But that aside, the player itself, Derrick White, I've come around on him in the last 24 hours just based on what I've watched and kind of like talking to a couple people who have watched him play a lot more than I have. So I'm pretty excited for what he can do for the team. I do have a lot of questions, like what's it mean? I don't think it's the final piece to the puzzle, obviously. I think it's almost like the first domino on whatever Ime and Brad are envisioning this team to look like over the next offseason. But I think I think he had an amazing first game. I mean, gosh, do you want to compare his tenure to Evan Fournier's? I mean, it's already over. You know what I mean? So I like what he brought to them tonight. I mean, he came as advertised, you know, a guy who can play defense, who can sort of go up and down the court, whip the ball around, and he plays hard. I mean, he definitely plays hard on both ends. And I think, as I was telling these guys earlier, I think that kind of brings it out of his teammates. You know, when you get a new guy on the team or a new guy in the office, it kind of sort of like gives you a little pep in your step or whatever you want to call it. So I think it's good for the team short term, but I also think it's good for them long term.
He might be the new Sparky, right?
He might be the new, yeah. I mean, by default,
he's
Richard
pretty Sparky, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he honestly just, like I talked about in the beginning, he just fits the culture. He fits what they're trying to do. He can guard multiple positions. I mean, he's such a Brad/Ime guy. I mean, it makes sense. And then for the Celtics fans who aren't thrilled about Celtics essentially overpaying with the extra picks, and yeah, to a certain extent, they do have a good point. But at the same time, you have to remember that's, in my opinion, a representation of what we've been talking about all season long. One, Romeo's value out there, and two,
right,
that Brad's going to have to clean up a bit of what Danny did or the Celtics did with the picks in the past, and he's willing to overpay, which is something that Danny wasn't willing to do. If it's a guy he wants, if it's a guy who's going to be a direct impact on the team, not only just cracking the rotation, but being one of those locker room guys, then he's going to overpay. He's going to put first-round picks in there, and he will lose some sleep, like he said. But I thought that it was great for Brad to get out in front of everything and say, look, this is my guy. And yeah, I was willing to throw in a couple future first-round picks to get him, but trust me, like this is gonna
fresh air
outweigh what people were being complaining about. Who are these pieces that you're going to be able to bring in with these little assets? And I think this is the best Brad could come up with.
Imagine we were sitting here with the same team today and we said, oh, if they just did a pick swap, it would have been done, but they didn't want to do it. I'd be furious. You got to pay what it costs to get the player, and you're not always going to hammer another team in a trade. Sometimes you got to give them what they need.
Look,
it was a fair deal.
We don't know if it's a fair deal. I think it's an overpay. You're going to have to wait and see how good it is.
Oh, I think it's an overpay, John. Let's just say it right there. Let's say what it is, though. It is an overpay.
We'll check back in when the Garden Report turns 10.
Listen again.
I think it's only an overpay because of that.
Sorry,
that pick swap situation.
It's for sure, but it's not just an overpay. It's not just an overpay for that. It's an overpay for what else could that much get you? You know what I mean? It's like, that's all I'm saying is, of all the things everyone thought they needed, I don't think Marcus Smart doppelganger was high on the list. So, there was things this team needed. It's going to be hard to know if this was the thing they needed more than anything else. If what they shipped away to get this type of player gets you a different type of player, whether it be better or one you need more, it's really hard to know that. Because we were not expecting someone like this, it takes a little while to kind of calibrate, like, okay, that's what they're doing here. And again, the thinking we have to go in here is, was this the best player they could get at this time, and decided we need somebody who's here long term, who has a bit of a salary, who we can hold on to so we can move things down the road, blah, blah, blah. Like, how many different things calculated, factored into it? Or did Ime and Brad just say, I freaking love this guy? We're still not really sure what their calculus was for why they went in this route. We don't know what other things might have been on the table. It's just really hard to judge it now. You gotta wait. You gotta wait a little bit.
I mean, the reason I say that is it's easy
But
to say
the
that's
best
an
thing's
overpay
gonna
right
happen
now.
is he plays well and you're happy, which is great. No one's gonna
Right.
worry about price if you're getting good results on the court. It's just hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge what else was available, what you could have gotten, whether this was the right move, whether you overspent yet.
Sure.
Right. Well, it's hard.